Today we meet John Johnson, MBA, certified sales professional, growth architect, sales strategist, and leadership multiplier. John is the powerhouse behind J Squared Consultants, a firm on a mission to help mid-sized businesses not just grow, but grow smarter. With a laser focus on scalable sales systems, cost cutting that fuels expansion, and leadership that builds culture, John turns business plateaus into launchpads. Before launching J Squared, John was the steady hand behind the iconic outdoor brands um, as president of Low Tide and held C-suite titles at Pittman Creek Wholesale. His 20 plus years at Altera Group sharpened his edge in trade development and operations at scale. He's not just a consultant, he's a builder of business ecosystems that last. Whether he's auditing inefficiencies to unlock growth capital or coaching execs to lead through change with confidence, John brings street smart strategy and battle tested insight. A passionate outdoorsman and sustainability advocate, John sits on the boards of the American Sport Fishing Association and Keep America Fishing Foundation, proving that great business leaders make waves both in the boardroom and in the backcountry. With that, welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Drew. Great to be here, sir.
Yeah, man. Technical difficulties. There we go.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, man, it's super fun to have you on the show. John and I, we're both kind of in the Lexington area. John's a little south. I'm a little bit north, but it's been fun to collab with you over the last month or so. What has got you excited the most over in the next 6 months?
Oh, that's a great question. In the next 6 months, what I'm most excited about is seeing the economy kind of come back. Here we are, we're in spring, almost summer. Things are moving, things are hot. People are really planning. I'm seeing a lot of pivots inside businesses where they're wanting to be more strategic. It's not so much hey, this is what we did last year. It's what we did 10 years ago. We're still doing it that way today. No, what I'm seeing is more a strategic approach from where are we going to be in 3 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? And those are the kind of questions that businesses need to be asking themselves. And here we are, with spring and summer and people are, getting out and getting moving. Those business owners are asking the right questions.
Actually, I'm super pumped that you brought this up. The great businesses are made in a recession. Yes, I said the R word. Don't tell. But a recession is a great time to refocus your strengths, right? When you're growing and you're expanding, you have that top line growth, you have some money to go and do some more fun things. It's fun. You keep people on the payroll that maybe don't have a direct, that doesn't directly point to the solution, but it's worth keeping around. But then we go through a contraction in the economy, and you can either be fearful, or you can say, this is a great time to shore up our core value, our core thrust, be strategic and move forward. I love it.
Absolutely. That is a great point. What you just said is exactly what I was trying to say. We're at a point where things are going to start moving. Let's get strategic. Let's make sure the vision that we have for the company is correct. We might be a little bit lean. We may, there's two ways to look at it. You already said it. You can either constrict and move backwards, because let's face it, if you're not moving forward, you are moving backwards because your competition is moving forward. Or you can take that forward approach, that proactive approach, and say, okay, what do we need to reinvest in? How do we need to allocate our resources so that we are moving forward in the right way to be able to accomplish our goals?
Yeah. I think Harvey Mackay, he said, there's never a bad time to start a great business, and there's never a good time to start a bad one.
I love it.
All right. So talk to me. You're an outdoorsman. You're a fisherman. Walk me through catching your first fish to then leading a fishing equipment company.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Of a story, to be fair.
So I've always been an outdoorsman. Passion for the outdoors, whether it be camping, hiking, water skiing, fishing, hunting. I mean, anything outdoors. That's what I really enjoy doing. So when did I catch my first fish? It was on the farm pond. in Harlem, Georgia, just outside of Augusta. My grandfather had a pretty decent sized cattle farm, and so we had a farm pond in the back. We had catfish. We had some, we call them brim. Here in Kentucky, everybody calls them bluegill, but a panfish. And
Yeah.
bass. And so my very first fish was with my grandfather. I actually have a picture. Man, I wish I had it available so I could show it. I'm like 3 years old, holding this little bitty bluegill like this big, kind of pull back, standing. But that was my first fish, and so fishing to me is more than just being outdoors. And the everybody says the tug is a drug. Feeling that tug on the line and fishing.
Bug is a
But it's
drug.
more than that for me. Yeah, the tug is a drug, and it is. But for me, it's more about being outside, being in nature, being with family. It's very relaxing. It's very exciting. It's hard to explain something that's relaxing but exciting, because it's relaxing in that, hey, we're casting, we're reeling, we might not be getting anything, and then boom, something blows up, and
Mm.
it's like, whoa, okay, now for the next 10, 15, 30 seconds, hour and 15 minutes, if it's a 500-pound blue marlin, which that was one for the books last October, yes, sir. Could be for the next hour and 15 minutes, but depending on what it is and how fast it is pretty exciting.
That's funny. You talk about fishing with your grandparents. I recently I knew that I made this transition in our family because about I think it was last summer, maybe it was 2 summers ago. We're at my dad's pond. He's now the grandpa. My kids are fishing,
Yeah.
and we're fishing and we're filling up 5-gallon buckets because this is grandpa's pond. Nobody fishes here but the kids. Not like strictly, but just practically speaking. And my dad had this funny look on his face, and I was like, "What's that smile about?" So we're fishing and we're fishing. We got our second 5-gallon bucket full of bluegill. And he goes, "Well, I'm going to the house with the grandkids. Looks like you're cleaning the fish." So for 2 hours, I got to understand. So now I'm deeply entrenched in the dad role
Mhm.
of
Yep.
cleaning the fish. I'm not catching them and I'm not frying them. I'm just cleaning them.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. And my dad, he fishes every day. Still, to this
Oh
day,
yeah.
he fishes every day. Yeah. Well, he's retired now, and he's got two or three different buddies, and they'll hit some farm ponds. They'll go to the lake. He lives down on Clark Hill, and so they're on the lake, and they're whatever's biting. He loves it. And whenever I was a teenager, that's whenever we really got big into it. We got a boat. We started chasing some largemouth and some hybrids, and just having a good time with it. And again, it's being with family, more than anything. And I even take my girls. We have a couple kayaks, and we'll get out on Cedar Creek, or we have a little pond here, and a couple neighbors that have ponds, and we'll get the kayaks out and row around and play. And I think my daughters are more about, hey, let's just get out and get some suntan and that sort of thing. But they do enjoy it. They enjoy being with dad and taking in nature.
No, I agree. Actually, and then for me, it actually extended beyond family. My mentor at Bell Helicopter's name was Brad Stamps. Brad and
Okay.
Brad taught me how to go crappie fishing, which for those that don't
Oh.
know, crappie fishing is sitting on top of a hole. So you find a tree, and then you park your boat on top of it, and you drink a bunch of beer.
Mhm.
Also, you catch fish.
Oh my.
Mostly you drink a bunch of beer. And but during that time, it was just we would talk about the work that we were doing. He and I were in research, and so we would design things. We'd talk through strategies to pitch those to the boss. So
There you go.
fishing, I think that people misunderstand. Fishing is about fishing, but fishing is about really sharing time with each other and thinking and having the space to focus. For
Yep.
you, did business? Is there a crossover between business and fishing for you besides actually just selling this?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever and I did not go into the fishing industry, go into business to be in this industry. Whenever I got my undergrad at Georgia, I went to work with Altria. I interned with them and went to work with them, spent 21 years with them. At the time it was a Fortune 100 company, but it was in consumer packaged goods. So it really wasn't
Okay.
in the outdoor industry, in the outdoor space at all. But working with him for 20 years, got a ton of great training, and was recruited by Pittman Creek here in Kentucky, which is a distribution company, that is in the sport fishing industry, in the fishing industry. Kind of hit my 20-year pension with Altria. And, after looking around, I said, yeah, let's do this. And that was really, if I have to go back and look at 32 years now in business, what was the most, what time of that 32 years did I enjoy the most? Where was I the most fulfilled? And it was at Pittman Creek. In 10 years, we took that company from we 10x'd it. Whenever I started, we were working in a 12,000 square foot facility, doing picks and packs by paper. And anyone who understands, distribution, you're basically buying from the manufacturer and then distributing out to retail. And we were primary supplier for 150, 200 independent small mom and pop bait shops in the Southeast, mostly bass centric. Go forward 10 years later, we moved 5 different warehouses. Ended up 2 years before I left, we moved into a 260,000 square foot, design and build, fully functional, fully automated warehouse. 260,000 square foot with WCS system, WMS system, new ERPs, running without a hitch. And it just incredible. And again, whenever I say 10x, I mean 10x. We went from doing 150 to 200 independent dealers to being the largest national coast-to-coast distributor of fishing tackle in the U.S. with 8,000 doors that we were the primary supplier for. And
there you go.
That was where I was the most fulfilled. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I want to replicate that. Whenever we broke that $20 million ceiling, and okay, what processes, what systems did we have in place to break that ceiling? Then we hit 50 million, and okay, we need more processes. To be able to scale, we need to take this, we need to add here, we need to pull back here, we need to reallocate resources there, whatever it was. Okay, now we broke that. Okay, now we're knocking on the $100 million ceiling, and so it was process enhancement after reallocation of resources to driving organizational capability, and it was step after step after step. And it was, and don't get me wrong, I mean, yes, I was the vice president of sales, CRO, COO, but it was the entire team. It was unbelievable. The teamwork that we had at that facility, because it was buy-in from everyone. Every employee was a stakeholder in the company, wanted to see the company move forward, wanted to see the company do good, and still do. Pittman Creek is still a thriving business to this day, even though I'm not there anymore. It was, I didn't mean that, didn't mean that way.
No, actually, I think that's
but it's great business.
I think that may be the greatest measure of a leader is your business thriving after you leave. Right? Was it
That's
tied
right.
into you, or were you? I tell my daughter all the time. She's 18. She's about to go on the great adventure. Right? She's leaving the house, and I said, Aubrey, there are 2 types of people. They're the people that walk in the door and say, "Here I am," and there's a type of people that walk in the door and say, "Hey, there you are." And I think that's
I love it.
I think that's one of the things that I loved most about you when we first met at a networking event. Is like there's a there you are type of a guy for me. And it's just played out with Pittman Creek. That's exciting. All right. So you're in leadership coaching now. Of course, we're both Maxwell guys. We love John.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite John Maxwell quote?
I actually do. And it kind of mirrors back to the sales end of my business. But I'm actually reading this book right now.
Nice.
A few different times that I've read it. And it's funny you asked me that, because I actually was turned here thinking about this, pondering on this, meditating on this morning. Chapter 4, the beginning, one of the first in the first paragraph of chapter 4 says, scorekeeping may be good for games, but not for relationships. And most people, whenever they think of leadership, whenever they think of especially sales leadership, a lot of times, that's derogatory. They think used car salesman, sort of thing. And that's really not what sales is. Drew, you and I learned this just this week. The word to sell or selling, salesperson, comes from the root word salon, which means to be a giver, to add
Yes.
value, to give to relationships, to build relationships. That's what true selling is. How can I add value to you? Are you, Mr. Buyer? You obviously have some sort of issue, some sort of problem. Let's get to the root of the problem. Let's ask discovery questions. Let's see how we can make your life better. And once we understand what the problem is, okay, now let's work. Let's add value to solve that problem for you. And if you're doing that, you are, along with proper infrastructure, proper systems, the right processes, solutions, then you will definitely be successful.
Yeah, I was just re-listening to some old Zig Ziglar tapes, and one of the
Oh,
things the old Zig said, he goes, "Listen, the any prosperity you see in the world is because a salesman got out of bed and went and asked somebody what their problems were and made the sale." And as an engineer, that's hard for me to hear because I think the world revolves around people and tinkering in a lab. But the
yeah.
truth is, you got to fall in love with the customer's problem, and you got to find a way to solve it. And when you do that, we gradually build up the civilization and of wonders that we live in today. And the other thing I love about that is that I always say you want to live a life so that if everybody copied you, the world would be a better place. And
Oh, love it.
so if you look at sales as my way to manipulate you to get you to purchase the thing so I can get my sales bonus, which I think is what a lot of us feel sales is. And there's people that are that way. But
Sure.
you 10x a company. That's no small feat, and you did it. So what were the sales philosophies that also became leadership philosophies that allowed you to be such a success?
At the end of the day, it was adding value to. It doesn't matter if it's the customer, if it's a teammate, whatever it is, as long as you're adding value, showing up every day with that mindset of how can I help you,
Mm,
and really that is the mindset. What can John do today to help Drew? What can John do today to help Shane? What can I do to help this customer? What can I do to help this, director of operations? What can I do to help this, packer on the line? That is the mentality. That's the questions you have to ask. And if you're asking that question, then okay, how do we get better? That goes back into sales, that goes into cost reduction, it goes into optimizations, whatever it is. How can we get better? How can I add value to my customer? How can I provide superior customer service? And if you're asking yourself those questions that are all aligned every day, then you're where you need to be moving forward.
I love it. One of the things that I think is most needed is running, being the chief is a hard
Mm-hmm.
game to play. One of my favorite quotes from the old England here is that the only person in the Navy that doesn't know what he's doing is the admiral. Everybody else is just following orders, but the admiral's the one he's just making it up. Um,
Yeah.
it's lonely at the top. How how did you keep when you're leading this company into this amazing growth trajectory, uh, and everybody's taking from you? Because I know how it is. Everybody wants, hey, John, can you do this for me? And so as a giver, how do you stay positive and keep your energy up when so many people are depending upon you and trying to kind of position to take a little piece of you?
I will say it's tough. It's very tough. And I used to, I had really good friends that was part of my team, that was part of the executive team. They were there to support. But I do remember, just to make this point, I remember telling Jim, the CMO, that I put out fires. I help everybody else from 8 to 5. And from five to eight, I actually do my job. That
Yes,
was it was a 12-hour day. It was eight to
yes.
five. I work for everybody else, and 5 to 8, I handle my responsibility.
So
That
you
that's
were you
that's
were
how I did.
you were just working half time. There's 24 hours in the day. You're just working 12-hour days.
Exactly. That's all I was doing. I was working half days.
Just working half days.
That joke was made quite a bit. But it's surrounding yourself with good people. I will say that, and I hate to, I don't want to offend anyone, but I don't mind putting my faith forward. Having the Lord with me, that walk with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ every single day, uh, every morning. I have a morning routine. That morning routine is spent in the Word. It's spent in prayer. It's spent in reading. It's that right there, man. It keeps me grounded and keeps me where I need to be on a daily basis. So you ask me, how do I keep this energy? How do I keep this positive attitude? It's my Lord and Savior, no doubt about
I
it. It's
love
not
that,
me.
man.
It's on Him.
Yeah. And I tell you, that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And what I find is the people that are the most impactful and the people that can keep that output going the longest and still maintain themselves are people with a strong faith. Um,
Yeah.
it's easy to go to a conference, kind of get hyped up on something. Maybe you're hitting your runs well, your exercise well, but having that core of faith is definitely a rock for me as well. Especially when things are going great, when the economy's great, when everything's going well, but when things start to tank, you have to ask yourself, do I have it in me to keep being the person that I want to be? Um, anyway, yeah, and for me, I'll tell you what, a lot of times the answer is no. I'll be like, I don't have it in me, and I need
That's right.
something else to fill up the tank. I love that.
Amen.
I love that.
No doubt about it.
All right. Well, we're talking, we promised on the sale on the placard here at the beginning of the show, we promised how to buy a Bugatti this year. And
Yeah.
Bugattis cost 600,000, $1 million. Um, talk to me about how I can save my way to a Bugatti, or maybe there's something else I should be thinking about.
No. That's well. I mean, it depends on what your goal is, what the goal is. And if your goal is a $500,000, $600,000 sports car, then okay, let's look at it. So the reason we said that, let's just do the math for you.
Yeah.
I can work. So J Squared Consulting is built upon three pillars. You've already touched on them. One is sales solutions. Number two, cost reduction solutions. Number three, leadership solutions. On the sales side, my average client within the first year will see a 34% increase. That's the average client over all the clients I've worked with. Being an advisor for sales acceleration, if you take a sample of all the clients, 7,000 clients across all sales acceleration advisors, there's only a couple hundred of us in the world. The average is 34%. So if you're a $2 million business, then then within the first year, you're at $680,000 revenue increase.
All right. This is what I want to highlight here. This is not just the fact you've already
Yep.
done this. You spent
Yes.
20 years at the first company. You spent 10 years at the
Yep.
second company. In that 10 years, you 10x'd it, right? So this is not, you're not just saying, oh, sometimes I can. And now you're part of a team that has been doing this for over 7,000 clients. So when you
Yes.
say 34%, this isn't based on like the 2 clients you did on
No.
Wednesday. No, this is
No, sir.
long-term success.
This is
The
long
system
term.
has worked in every industry. It's working.
Yep.
I
Yes,
love
sir.
that. All right.
Yep.
So there you go. So we got sales increase. That's a great way to increase. But of course, I can increase sales. But if I'm spending all the money I'm making, that Bugatti's not coming.
That's exactly right. That is one of the crucial things that I learned, in the 10 years as COO, is you can get to the point where you're increasing revenue and it's taking more and more and more working capital to be able to sustain that increase in revenue, causing cash flow problems. A lot of times, if you're not scaling properly, if you're not looking at optimizing your cost and finding efficiencies with that scale, you will find your cost growing at a percentage higher than your revenue increases. So, we utilize that tagline on the actual title is revenue may not be the problem, but profits are. And that's where the cost reduction comes in.
Yeah, I want to jump in here because my audience sometimes
Yep.
is a little bit of a smaller client. You can be making
Okay.
money. So pretend
Yep.
that you're a bakery, and in order to make so many loaves of bread, you got to have a 55-pound bag of flour. Well, to
Yep.
double that production of bread, you got to double that production of flour. Well, the problem
Correct.
is you are making money. You are making a profit on every loaf that you sell, but you're now having to finance a larger and larger portion of flour. And
Yep.
so as you're increasing, your overall business is increasing in revenue, your non-productive money that's sitting on a shelf, like you may go and you may buy wholesale flour. So now I got a whole tractor trailer full of
Yeah.
flour, but it's not being sold out the front. I bought the flour cheaper, but that money is tied up, not
It's
working
tied
for
up.
me. And
Working
if you can
capital. Yep.
optimize, if you can do it just in time, or there's a number of ways to do it, but if you can optimize your flour usage in this case, so that you instead of having to spend $50,000 on a bunch of flour that might rot, that might get eaten, that might sour in some way, if you can get the operation to run smoother, it takes less working capital to actually make the money.
That is correct. And here's one of the biggest places that I focus in whenever we're talking about that is
Yeah.
all of the third party costs. So I know I'm
Mm.
going to have 100 pounds of flour,
Yep.
and so my working capital is going to be diminished because I'm going to have more in inventory, I'm going to have more in labor, I'm going to have more on insurance. Okay,
Right.
those labor and the people asset and the inventory asset, what it takes to get there. Those two things we know we're going to have it, and there's no way around it. So where can we reallocate other expenses to be able to buy a 100-pound bag of flour? Okay,
Mm.
or that extra 25% increase in manpower that I'm going to need to be able to bake and get it out. So let's look at your internet expenses. Look at your cell phone expenses, your hardline expenses, your voice over IP, your data storage, your shipping cost, your credit card processing fees. All those things. Yes, exactly. All those things. You look at it, 18, 19 different cost categories that are all third party. Those that can be reallocated. Those expenses can be reallocated if you can save enough money on those into to be able to put into working capital, so you can buy a 100-pound bag of flour, so you can increase your manpower by 5%, 10%, 15%, whatever it takes to get that production up. Typically, those 19 categories that we and we didn't go through all of them, but waste management's a big one. But let's go through. Those 19 categories typically add up to about 40% of your total overhead.
Okay. I
The
want
clients
to
that I
pause
work
on
with,
this.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, I want to pause on this for just a second here. 40% of your total overhead um, is a massive deal. So let's say that you're a 10% company. Let's say for every
mhm,
$100 you spend, you make $110. I mean,
yep,
we're just going to pretend that that's how it works, right? So that's a $10. That's $10 you're taking home. You're spending $100 to take home $10. If
yep.
you can reduce your overhead, which is probably half of that $100 we're talking about,
Oh,
you're
absolutely. It's probably 60%.
right. You're not taking home um, $11. You're taking home like $30, right?
Hmm.
When you can reduce the cost of doing the business, which is, and you can do it incrementally. You do it over, like I think you said 19 categories.
Yes,
And this is where it's nice to have somebody like you that's 19. It's hard to keep 19 categories in your head. It's nice to have somebody like you come in and help us chop that up and like systematically work through those categories. But if you're a
right.
10% company, you can become a 40% company. That's not a
You
casual increase.
absolutely could. That 40% of overhead typically working. So the IP that I utilize there is a company called Schooley Mitchell out of Canada that has auditors and negotiators. They've been in business for 25 years. I'm actually a strategic partner with this company,
Yeah.
and the average client is we can actually decrease their cost on that 40% of those categories by 28%. So basically, what we can do is add 12 to 14% to your bottom line just on the cost reduction. So if we're increasing sales by 34% and we're decreasing your overall cost, adding to your bottom line, I'm talking net profit margin, 12 to 14%, then guess what? You just made 50% more money this year than you did last year. If you're a $2 million company, that's $1 million.
That's $1 million in your pocket,
That's
$1 million.
in profit. Yep.
Not $1 million that goes to a marketing agency that goes through some sort of conversion rate, and then you have to put them in the sales lead, and then 6 months later, maybe 10% of them actually become a client. No, no, no. Within the 6 months to a year, you
Yep.
are adding $1 million if you're a $2 million revenue company, right?
Yep.
There no
Post
guarantee of
engagement,
financial
52 weeks. That's it. Yeah.
no financial guarantees have been made on the show, and your results vary by person to person. No, this conversation is what I love so much about strategic coaching, operations coaching, is that you can harden your company, make it more efficient, not cutting people, make it more efficient, and make massive changes to your bottom line. And that's how you can
Absolutely.
and that's how you can really galvanize the team to get excited, is because you're not going to make 10 extra $1,000. You might make $1,000,000. You could take your whole team on a cruise. Like, seriously, take them
Absolutely.
on a cruise. And that's the type of stuff that
You
makes
can
life worth living for you and them.
absolutely. We've had clients who, on a small scale, lost. There was one client in particular actually lost their biggest client, was losing market share. They lost, like 14% of their business. That one client was 14% of their total overall revenue. They lost that client. I mean, was thinking, oh, we're having to cut back here, we're having to cut back there, we're not going to be able to do this. We can't. They were wanting to implement a new ERP system, and they had put that on hold. They had canceled their Christmas party. We're talking, this is something that the owner of this company, really wanted to take care of the employees. And okay, we canceled the Christmas party. We're probably going to have to lay off manpower, that sort of thing. We were able to come in, save them quite a bit of money. They went forward with the ERP system. They took the savings in the first year that they got with the cost reduction that we did. They implemented a new ERP system and were able to fund their Christmas party. And we got testimonial letters back from them that was just glowing reviews of, we thought, we were seeing nothing but darkness. And now, morale and our culture is better than ever.
Yeah, and this is what we call this is, you can't see the label from inside the bottle. Like, if you're a bakery, right? You know baking, you know flour, you know what makes your people come in, you know how to make the pastries, you know the time, you know the labor. But that doesn't mean you're super great at the P&Ls and at the cash flow of your business. Having
Right.
somebody come in now, I'm not going to ask you to put your rates on the show here, but you have somebody come in and you're paying them a couple thousand a month for consulting. That's a really hard pill to swallow sometimes. You're like, why am I paying this guy this money? The difference between the owner, the entrepreneur, the leader of the company, and the second in command, again, the only person in the Navy that doesn't know what they're doing is the admiral, is you pay for transformation. You don't pay for work to get done. You don't get paid to do work. You get paid to transform situations. You can't save your way into a better business. That's not you can harden your business, but you can't save your way into better business. You have to get smarter,
Right.
which I think is the third pillar of your business leadership.
Yep.
Why pay for leadership?
So the leadership that, well, I mean, you've already said it. You're paying for the future. You're paying to transform. You're paying for, this is my vision. This is the mission. How do I get there?
Yeah.
You can get there much faster with a team than you can by yourself. Because at the end of the day, Drew, myself, you, the CEOs, the solopreneurs of the world, we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times you can bring someone else in who has been there, who has seen it, and it's more costly to make 100 mistakes than it is to pay someone who's already made those 100 mistakes, who can put you in the path that you don't make those mistakes. You can get there a lot faster, you can get there a lot cheaper, and you can get there much more effectively. By having someone come in and assist with leadership. Now, my leadership that I specialize in is mostly built around sales teams. It's behavioral analysis, DISC assessment. What is your personality type, and how do you communicate that? Your sales team, what is their personality type? Salesperson to salesperson personality types. How do we communicate better? Your buyers, what are their personality types? How can I communicate better with them? And it all builds up around communication and teamwork. So behavioral assessments, and then also, RAIN, RAIN, Certified Sales Leader and Facilitator, where we're actually doing sales training. Again, in integrity.
Did you say RAIN, AR,
Right.
as in
RAIN.
rainmaker, as in become a rain?
As I'm gonna make it rain. That's right. Absolutely.
Make it rain, baby. No, that's
Yes,
actually,
sir.
I love that, because sales has to occur. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. And
Yep.
if you do leadership and you think that leadership is motivating my people to like because I'm a nice guy that they want to follow me, at the end of the day, you got to make it rain. That's the
That's right.
job of the leader. You have to make it rain. Understanding sales is part of that play. Understanding how to run your business efficiently is part of that play.
Yep.
Right. A lot
And
of
how
times
to
I run into
work
folks
together as a team. That
how
is
to
the
work,
third pillar.
and there has to be a win. I used to engineering was my background, right? And I would just get so frustrated when they'd roll out the new incentive package, and I was like, "You're literally paying me to be smart, but then you're treating me like I'm stupid with this new incentive package, right? Like, you want me to be motivated by a pizza party? Like, you want me to work extra hours, do more of the work than I did last year? No, you got to find a way as a leader to say, listen, if we sail across the sea, there's treasure in them hills, and I know how to get
Mhm.
it. And when we get it, we're all getting a cut. That is a leader
Yep.
everyone will follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And part of the sales infrastructure project and the sales management. So if I come in and assist a company and actually assume like VP of sales on a fractional basis, meaning that I'm paid a fraction of what you would pay a VP of sales for,
That's right.
you get all the tools. But part of that infrastructure project is the right employee incentive compensation package. We'll actually build that together so that it is what's right for the company and right for the employee, so that it's a win-win situation.
Well, and this is like I used to engineering helicopters, right? Everybody in my industry knows how to design a helicopter. But you have to design this specific helicopter for this specific scenario. So having somebody that comes in that's
Yep.
mastered the art, that has the tools in place, that has the forms filled out, that has the automated systems, who can then tailor rather than guess and checking, that can tailor the incentive that gets the employee excited about whatever the sales process is. It could be, hey, we just need to sell more homes. That's legitimate.
Right.
Or
Could be.
it could be you just invested in a whole bunch of we'll call it fishing tackle, and we got to sell fishing tackle this quarter. So
Yep.
every quarter you're changing your sales targets and your incentives need to line up with that in a authentic way. And having somebody that can help you do
Absolutely.
that. That's the other
Yep.
thing that you
And
said.
and
Yeah, go for it.
oh, go ahead.
Well,
Well,
the other
and that's go ahead. No, you go ahead.
okay, here's what I want to point out here. John is a fractional sales leader. Um, uh, Fractional COOing, fractional CXOing is an interesting world, and I want to talk about it for a second. The truth of the matter is, and I think that you know that the audience here, I think you know this, you're not acting like a leader 24/7. I think John said this previously. He works from 8 to 5 for everybody else, then he works from 5 to 8 for himself. In other words, only 3 hours of his day is he doing executive work. The rest of the time, he's just kind of like firefighting. Well, you as a
Yep.
small business, as a medium business, there's no sense in paying John to fight fires.
Put up fires. That's
Just
right.
just pay for what you need, progressive insurance style here.
Yep.
Pay for what you need, not for what you don't,
Yeah. I like it.
right? Pay for get John in. His business is to come in and help you specifically in a couple of line items, but you get all of his experience for any of that other stuff. Remember, he's 10x a company. He's worked for 20 years in corporate Fortune 100 company. Uh, you can get all of that experience of a fellow COO that you can like brainstorm with, spitball with, throw ideas across room, be vulnerable with for the
Hmm.
price of a secretary, for the price of an admin.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
you
right.
want to talk about the biggest
Absolutely.
cost savings you can possibly have? Fractional CXOing, man.
Yep. And it's not just paying for the coaching. That fractional role as a sales management. What does that actually entail? Well, that starts at the beginning. What is the vision? We're going to framework that vision out. We're going
Yep.
to make sure that we understand who the ideal client is, who is the ideal consumer. What is our value proposition? Okay, now let's understand that value proposition. What makes us unique in the marketplace? What do we have to offer that no one else does? Okay, now let's train our salespeople on being able to tell that story and implementing the CRM and implementing, how to generate leads, how to warm leads, how to close those leads based upon adding value, based upon the value proposition, implementing a incentive compensation program. It is nuts to bolts, an entirely defined sales process, and I am coaching the whole time I'm there working, it really, it's all part of the package. It's not like separate. So that 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, John can move from here to here, and the person that he's been training assumes vice president of sales role and can continue on that work.
And he can pass that off. The other thing I want to point
Yep.
out is essentially you're free. And a good employee, a good leader doesn't pay for any of his employees. Every employee he hires pays for themselves, really.
Yep.
2x. That's a much longer discussion. But if you imagine, I think you said 37, is it 37, 34%?
34%.
On average, your clients get 34% increase in revenue and 28% decrease in costs, right?
Yep.
John's free.
Yeah.
Right.
We can go in with a cost reduction study and allocate that into sales, and the cost reduction, honestly, the money that's saved in the cost reduction could pay for the sales services. And then, a year down the road, I didn't cost anything, but was able to decrease costs by, add 14% to your bottom line and increase revenues by 34%. That was the overall business plan for J Squared whenever I started it.
So I think this is what, you can't see it actually from the screen here. The way I teach my kids about money is completely different than the way everybody else did. The short version of it is this: the biggest names on all the biggest buildings in all the biggest cities are all bank names, because the banks understand that money works differently than the envelope system that we were taught.
Okay, yeah.
Right. When you look at the way Elon Musk bought Twitter, and we don't have time to go into it right now, but Elon Musk didn't pay a dime for Twitter. He bought $43 billion company for free. And once you start understanding how that works, which is related to debt, and it's related to but it's essentially when you hire employees, and especially when you hire a fractional COO, you got to stop thinking of them as a cost. And from the beginning, you got to say, John's free because he's going to bring so much value to my company. He's going to pay for himself 2, 3, 10 times over.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked fishing. We've talked leadership. We've talked how to buy a Bugatti this year. I'm going to turn the show over to you, John. Is there anything else that the audience needs to hear?
Yes, there's one thing I thought about this earlier, because you've mentioned a couple of times your background is engineering. My background is sales. One of the first things that my mentor, his name is Merritt Eastley, 30 years ago, told me was, if you're not selling something and you're not making something, then you're overhead. And so, here we are with an engineer and a salesperson, and so I had to throw that out there. That kind of crossed my mind. That guy, man, he was the ultimate salesperson. Always know your audience, always know what you're selling and how you're going to be able to add value. And if you're not selling something, you're not making something, then you are overhead. And that was, he was full of one-liners like that. But I had to throw that out there. Knowing your engineering background.
No, I love that. I love that. And I love that because there's a natural animosity between engineers and sales guys, right? If you do it wrong. But if you do it right, the sales guys know your customer better than anybody in your company, because they're out there touching the customer. And the engineers, if you can tell us what to make, we're just desperate to make it. We just, we get lost in our own little world and we start focusing on things that we think would matter. But it's that human becoming an anthropologist and discovering what the problem is the customer's having, and then telling us, and then you can have something truly amazing put together.
And at the end of the day, it goes back to one of the first things we talked about: communication, teamwork, communicating with the customer, communicating with the engineer, with the internal. It's all about communication. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time on the show here. I want to put a little finer tooth to this. And as you're listening to John, I know that a lot of times you can hear folks that are leadership coaches, that are sales coaches, that are this or that, and you kind of hear them, and you're like, well, I'd also like a fries and a cheeseburger with that, right? There's any number of people can say that they're a coach, but John has such a pedigree: 32 years in corporate America, well, 20 years in Fortune 100 company, And then he took a small private deal and he 10x'd it over the next 10 years. I don't
Yep.
think you appreciate how hard it is to 10x something. There are at least 4 distinct gates in that process where you are learning and growing and buying big purchases, big risks, and
Oh
done
yeah.
smartly to succeed. So if you're looking at this right now and you're saying to yourself, I'm at 10 million, I'm at 20 million, economy is contracting, people are depending upon me, people are going to get laid off if I don't figure this out. You need somebody that's been there, that's done it for years, for decades, and has succeeded the whole way through. So I want you to give John a call for me. Tell him you heard him on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Say, hey, John, let's just do a free assessment. Maybe you can give me some pointers. How do I get to 34% increase in revenue this year? How do I get 28% drop in my overhead? How do I get this beast that I got? How do I get it so it's not running me and I'm starting to run it, so that my team can have a Christmas party this year, so that life is full of light and hope in the future? So reach out to John. You go to his website here. It's I've lost the plot here. Getwithjohn.com. Go to getwithjohn.com. It's on the placard. I will pop it up in just a second. And tell him you heard him on the
Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Me. You can also email me, John, JOHN, at getwithjohn.com. And Drew, you and I, we've met several months ago and just had a great relationship. And man, I'm gonna tell you, it's I feel a great connection with you. I really can't thank you enough for having me on your podcast. This has been truly a great experience. But I want to give something away for free to your audience, to your connections.
Thanks.
On this podcast. So Drew said, get in touch with John. Listen, I actually have a free sales assessment that I'm willing to, or a sales assessment link that I think Drew may be able to, or just email me and I'll send it to you. Probably the easiest way to do it. So email me. I'll send you a link to the assessment. Anyone mention Drew, mention the Drew Sutton Show, and the assessment will be completely free. I will do a free audit, free baseline report for cost reduction. The sales assessment itself will be, it won't take you 15, 20 minutes to fill out. You will automatically get back a answer reply, basically, that says, okay, of all the clients that we've worked with, the 7,000 clients that we've worked with in the past, this is where they are, this is where you are, and we can absolutely see, you can see yourself from the assessment where those opportunity gaps are, and in throughout the top 10 sales drivers. And that's basically what it is. It's going through the top 10 sales drivers. And, from there, I can follow up with you and see how we can close those gaps. Again, go back to cost reduction, free analysis, free baseline report, and any savings that we get for you, I'll just bill out a percentage of the savings so it doesn't cost the company anything.
That's amazing. I appreciate that, John. Listen, go getwithjohn.com. And with that, we are out.